One thing I was fascinated about, because I didn't know anything about the American Civil War, and I'd already imagined that it was two armies slugging it out on land, But, discovering how much of it was actually played out at sea was a big surprise. And we're lucky enough to have an object, which is a sword, belonging to this gentleman called Captain Raphael Semmes, who was a captain, obviously, in the Confederate States Navy. The northern states of America were much more industrialised than the southern states and had shipbuilding facilities, which the southern states didn't have. And this, particularly when the blockade happened by the northern states on the southern ports, they couldn't get any materials in or out. And so the South felt they had to do something to try and match the might of the Northern Navy. And what they did was they sent spies over to Liverpool, and because in Liverpool there were so many connections with the merchants and the plantations of the southern states, family connections, business connections, the Confederate government sent spies over to Liverpool to try and drum up funds for ships and arms. And one ship that was built was the CSS Alabama. It was built in Birkenhead by John Laird shipyard. It was illegal in this country to provide arms for any other country at war. The CSS Alabama was built as a merchant ship, and once built, it was crewed with British crew and sailed out to the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic, where Captain Semmes and the Confederate officers then got on board and turned it into a warship, basically. And it turned out to be the most terrifying ship of the Civil War, and it sailed as far east as Singapore, it sailed all around the world, and its mission was to destroy, sink or capture northern merchant ships. It sailed all over the world, and it sank many northern ships to the cost to the Union government of $6 million. It sank 69, or put out of action 69 northern ships. So a gentleman picked this sword up in a junk shop in Skipton, and later on he became the mayor of Blackpool. And once Gracie Fields visited Blackpool, and he presented it to her as a gift. And because it's a tenuous, well, it's not tenuous, it's an interesting connection, because here in Rochdale, because it's Gracie Fields' hometown, we hold a big collection of Gracie Fields memorabilia. So we ended up with this sword. It's an astonishing thing to have, really. In the annals of Rochdale, we discovered that there was a youth on board the CSS Alabama called Bell. That's all we know about him, from Rochdale. So we looked into that, and we found in old copies of the Rochdale Observer a letter published. It was a letter from him to his cousin, published in the Observer, describing a battle that had taken place. It was actually the nearest that the CSS Alabama had ever got to the southern states of America, which is a strange thought as well. But it was off the coast of Galveston at Texas, and there was a battle going on. The northern ships were bombarding the town of Galveston, and the Alabama sailed in and attacked these ships, and then turned tail and went out to sea. And the USS Hatteras followed it, and there was a battle out at sea, and the USS Hatteras was sunk. And this youth named Bell was on the ship at the time, and describes it in this letter. One of the things that we wanted to base this exhibition around was the fact that this ship was built in Birkenhead on the Mersey and went out as a ship for the southern Confederate States and that side of the Civil War. At the same time, we own the barrel that came in on the ship the George Griswold, that also came into the Mersey and docked at Liverpool from the northern states as a thank you to the people of Lancashire for supporting them during the Civil War. So we've got this very interesting kind of circular story, really, and the two sides of this American Civil War, which you wouldn't think would have any effect on Rochdale at all, but turned out to have a huge effect on the people of Rochdale.